G'day guys, in this video I'm going to be looking at the Anycubic Kobra 3 combo. This is a multi-colour filament printer. It comes with an AMS style box and it's basically a fast, cheap printer. I picked it up for $500 Australian. That works out to be around about 320 American. So it's a fairly cheap printer. If you're not looking to spend a lot of money and you want to get into fast multicolour printers, this might be the one for you. It's on par with the Creality Hi and the Bamboo A1. Now I get some people are going to say just buy the Bamboo A1, but not everyone wants to be in the Bamboo ecosystem, and some people might say just buy the Creality Hi because it has extra functions or it's got cameras and stuff in it, but not everyone wants to buy a Creality printer. Also, with those printers out and Anycubic releasing the S1 now, this is coming down in price, so you may even be able to pick this up cheaper when it's on special, whatever stores you have around you. So we'll have a look at the printer, and then I'll show you some of the prints and then some of the issues I've had with it. So alright, we'll have a look at the printer first. It's a bed slinger, which basically means your bed's going backwards and forwards. It's got a magnetic plate, so that's all fairly standard. Your wipe towel's at the back here, it's just a bit of rubber. And it runs on these weird sort of hybrid between linear rails and V-rollers. So they're basically just metal bearings that run across the top of these rods here. The issue I have with this is if your printer's in a shed like mine is, and you've got other tools like lasers, CNC machines, stuff like that, you can get dust in here because this is greased, so you can end up with crap on this. Probably not the best idea, so if you do have this in a dusty environment, probably we're going to want to put a cover over it. Okay, looking at the print head here, it's fairly standard. You've got a fan at the front. There's 4 tubes coming from the ACE, which run the filament in. It's a little bit different to the Creality and the Bamboo that only have one. And then they've got a buffer, which allows 1 to 4, but this is how Anycubic's gone about it. The little bit of a difference here is that the filament, when it retracts, it only pulls it back to there. So it doesn't pull it out very far, it's only going to travel, like that much distance for a filament swap. So that's pretty cool because it's not constantly winding out and winding in filaments like the other ones do. But it doesn't appear to speed up the multicolour printing process much at all. So it's just how they've gone about it. Looking down at the bed has the same sort of weird V-roller, linear rail sort of mash-up, whatever you want to call it. So it's got the bars either side. Again, they're covered in grease so they can pick up crap. When I pulled this out of the box, the bed was loose, so it was basically moving around, so you're going to have to tighten the screws up underneath the bed if yours is loose. Other than that, it's fairly straightforward. Another weird design choice was that the cable for the ACE plugs into the front here. Probably not the best place to put it. Would have been nicer at the back somewhere, but that it is what it is for a $500 printer. Alright, looking at the back of the printer, there's only a single stepper motor for the Z-axis. Would have been nice to have a stepper motor both sides for Z-tilt, so you can level the gantry, but this is what we've got, and it's connected by a belt, so it's fairly straightforward. That's what you get for a cheap printer. So another thing with this printer is when it needs to change the colour of the filament, or it's just doing a filament purge, it wastes the filament to here, and this is spring loaded, so what will happen is the head will come over and it'll waste its filament, and then when it goes click, it shoots the waste filament out. So that's going to end up on the floor or on the desk or whatever, so you're going to have to build something to catch it, or however you want to deal with that. A little bit annoying because it's a bit messy. It's not as clean as like the X1 Carbon and the Creality K2 and all of that, where you actually have a chute out the back. So you just have to keep that in mind. This is what you get for a cheap printer, but overall it does purge the filament and it does change colours, and it works very well for that. So just keep that in mind, that it's a little bit messy. Okay, and this is what they call the ACE, which is the Anycubic Colour Engine. It's basically an AMS. It works as a dry box, but the dry function in it only works when it's connected to the printer. There's no controls or anything to do that standalone from the printer. This is a very slow unit. When the filament's spooling through to go through all the hoses and everything, it's very, very slow. It could be sped up 2 or 3 times, I reckon. but it just runs slow. It doesn't affect its performance, it's just slow. Now, just like the Creality and the Bamboo, it has RFID in the 2 inner fins. I've already made an app to be able to write your own tags for these, so you can tag your own filaments. Anycubic doesn't seem to be trying to stop it like Bamboo and potentially Creality is doing, so this gives you the freedom to do that. One sort of gripe I have with it is when you let the lid go. It's a very heavy lid, and I don't know if you can see that in camera, but you just sort of let it go a bit and it rocks around a lot. So I don't know how long this hinge at the back will last with so much movement and no support, but you get that for a cheap printer. Overall, the box seems to be fine. Alright, now so let's have a look at some of the prints that this thing's done. Now, for most things, like what I usually print as a test, these little articulated dragons, this came out very well on it. This is probably one of the better printers. That's literally just printed this model, stock standard out of the box, no tweaking or anything. It printed this really well. All of the articulation worked well, came off the bed well. I can't fault that. That's one of the better experiences I've had with a new printer on this model. So I'm rather impressed with that. That worked really well. The same as the little socket man. There is a little bit of banding or ringing or whatever you want to call it around the edges. It's not as clean as the Creality was. It's more in line with what the Bamboo X1 Carbon was giving me. But overall, it was a clean print, worked really well. No issues with that. So I was quite happy with that. And then onto multicolor filaments. It printed this really well. The Creality failed on this, where on the corner here it was discoloured because it didn't appear to purge the filaments enough. This printer seems to have done it really well. No issues with that, so they've got that down. And yes, I know you can change the settings to purge more filament and all of that, but that's not what this is about. This is about stock standard, straight out of the box printing, because that's how most people are going to experience this. So that came out pretty good, no issues with the purging, so it's pretty good for swapping the filament colours. Alright, so here we'll look at some of the problematic parts that I had with it. And because the gantry on this printer from the factory was about 2mm unlevel to the bed, it was completely out of tilt. So what's happened is that's transferred into the actual prints. So this print here should be 40mm wide on the STL. So on one side, it's 40.52, so that's too much, and on the other side it's 39.4. So what's happened is it's printed it tilted. So if you're looking for dimensional accuracy, say you've got parts locking together or gears or anything that needs to kind of be relatively accurate, this was no good. This will throw it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to level the gantry to the bed, and then we'll come back and have a look at how the printers worked out. Now I've already printed the parts and I've already leveled it, but I filmed it before, so I'm just going to show you how I went about leveling it, and then we'll have a look at this part and you'll see the difference. Okay, so to find out what was going on with my bed, I've got a couple of sockets here which are the same size. I've tested them with the calipers. You can use anything you want, you just need 2 of them and they need to be the same size, of course. And what I've done is I've just put them on the edges of the bed here in the middle under the gantry, and I've lowered the gantry down until the gantry touches, just barely touches one of them, which is on this side. And as you'll see in the photos here, my gantry is about 2mm, roughly 3mm out. It's around about 2 on one side to the other, so my gantry is not level to my bed. So to level the gantry to the bed, I'm going to undo one of the screws here, which is holding the belt to the rod, and I'm going to let the gantry drop down and touch the socket so it's equal on each side. Okay, so I'm going to do it on this side of the printer, which is the right hand side when you're looking at the front, or the side of the printer here that doesn't have the stepper motor on the bottom. And all I'm going to do is just undo the little screw here. It's a little bit tight. And then there's a second screw, so you just want to undo the second one, just so they're loose. Now the rod can spin freely. Okay, and all I'm going to do is push the gantry down here until it touches. So now it's touching on both sides. You can push down on it a bit. So verify that it's touching both sides, and then just do up the screws that you've undone. Alright, now I've done that, tighten everything back up, just lift the gantry a bit, just bring it back down so it just touches. And both sockets are basically the same. Test it by just touching it. You can just feel just ever so lightly, like the paper trick. You can feel it touching ever so lightly. And the same's happening there. So they're basically exactly the same, using the same socket, just in case one's not the right size. So now the gantry's leveled to the bed. A little bit low there, so there's a low point at the front here. So it might need a little bit of a shim under the bed, but I'll do another mesh and we'll see where it's at. But leveling the gantry to get that 2mm of variance out, that's a better starting point than trying to manipulate the bed. So now I can manipulate the bed to, you know, feather it, but I've got a feeling that this bed's just warped. So we'll see how it works anyway and see if those inconsistencies in the prints show up in my next prints after I've done this. Okay, so just for another point of reference, I'm going to use a ruler and I'm just going to measure the gantry height to the base of the printer either side, just to get an idea if it's all twisted now to shape. Now I've levelled it. So I'll check this side. And that's sitting on 7mm, this side, and that's sitting on 7mm. Okay, so by doing that I know that the gantry is level to the frame of the printer, so it's not going to be twisting as it goes up and down and putting pressure. So clearly from factory the gantry was twisted by about 2mm, and that's what was causing problems with the prints. In the picture you can see that the gantry is level to the bed, but now you've still got that dip in the corner which I showed with the socket before. So at the front corner, the way I've rectified it is I've just got a couple of machine washers, and they're about 0.8 of a millimetre thick when you get them, and you just bang them flat with a hammer on something flat. So experiment around with them, get it down to about 0.5 or something, I think is the one I got down to. And then I undone the screws of the bed, and then I just slipped the washer underneath the metal spacer which sits under here, so it's on the bed, and it's just lifted this front corner up just a little bit, and then as you'll see in the photo here, it's sort of leveled out the bed. So it's not perfect, but it is as close as I'm going to get it. Now after seeing that it was leveled like that, this was the part I printed after that. So on one end it's 40.05, so it's pretty close, and on the other end it's 40.4. It differs because I'm pushing against it, so it's roughly the same either end, you know, 39.4, but if you let it go it'll sort of go to 40, and again you go to that end and it'll push it in, it'll be like roughly the same. So all that means is that the part's roughly dimensionally accurate both sides, and I had the same with these. These were printed and I get the exact same. So those were the issues, and simply leveling the gantry has made it so it prints accurate either side. Final thoughts, how did it stack up? Well, the print quality is up there with my Bamboo and my K2. This one, like I said, printed pretty much the same as the Bamboo. The filament purging the colours, that worked better than the Creality K2 out of the box, so that was good. This model printed beautiful, no issues with that at all. I think this, like I mentioned before, this is probably one of the better ones I've ever pulled off the bed, with the articulation and everything, the head popping on. It did have issues with these parts out of the box, with the gantry being unlevelled. So with some tweaking, that fixed that, and they come out good. So it's pretty good for dimensional accuracy now I've levelled it. The printer itself, you can install Rinkhals, which is a custom firmware. I think that's how you say it anyway. And I'll link that in the video description. And what that does is it gives you access to mainsail, fluid, and the file system on the printer, so you can tweak stuff, mess around with it. It gives you app access, so he's made some apps or whatnot that can mess with Octoprint or whatever. I haven't looked into that. The printer itself doesn't have a camera inbuilt into it, but you can plug pretty much any USB camera I've found into it. I've tried Logitech's and Microsoft ones, and they both work. So just plugging them in, it was plug and play, pops up on the printers on the Anycubic Next slicer, and it also shows in mainsail. So yeah, if you're looking for a little printer and you're not willing to spend a lot of money, or you've got a relative or something that wants to, get into printing but they don't want to spend a lot of money, this may be something that you may want to look at. So anyway, I hope that helps you at least with this printer. I wouldn't go out and say this is the best printer that you're going to be able to buy. That's not what this is about. This is just about me buying a cheap printer and giving it a test. And yeah, I don't think it's that bad, considering some of the Anycubic printers I've had in the past have been steaming piles of garbage, and they're actually doing a lot better with this one. So yeah, I hope that helps you on this printer anyway.